Is the Quran a divine book? What are the criteria to verify that? Episode 9, Criterion 5. Is there bias in the Quran's decrees, and are its laws compatible with human nature? Islamists claim that the Quran is unbiased in its judgments and that it calls for peace and equality among people of different races and beliefs. They conclude that Quranic laws are compatible with human nature and suitable for all times and places. Let's examine the following examples from the Quran to judge whether the Islamists' claim is true or false. Example 1 from chapter 5, verse 51 and verse 82. O you who have believed, do not take the Jews and the Christians as allies. They are, in fact, allies of one another. And whoever is an ally to them among you, then indeed, he is one of them. Indeed, Allah guides not the wrongdoing people. You will surely find the most intense of the people in animosity toward the believers to be the Jews and those who associate others with Allah, and you will find the nearest of them in affection to the believers those who say, "We are Christians." That is because among them are priests and monks and because they are not arrogant. We see that these two verses do not call for acceptance and peaceful coexistence with those who differ from Muslims in their beliefs. In the first verse, there is a clear accusation against non-Muslims, labeling them as wrongdoers. This accusation is capable of inciting hatred, enmity, and revenge between Muslims and other religious communities that differ from Islam. Example 2 from chapter 4, verse 34. But those, wives, from whom you fear arrogance, first, advise them, then if they persist, forsake them in bed, and, finally, strike them. But if they obey you, once more, seek no means against them. The question here is whether striking any woman to ensure obedience aligns with the natural human dignity of women. Where is the respect for a woman's dignity and feelings in this physical punishment? If we accept that physical punishment and striking women to enforce obedience are necessary, then fairness would dictate that the Quran should also allow women to strike their husbands for the same fault or misconduct for which the woman is punished, namely disobedience and rebellion. Therefore, it would be fair to add to the end of the text, and for women likewise if their husbands are defiant, thus establishing equal treatment in this legislative text. Example 3 from chapter 5, verse 38. As for the thief, the male and the female amputate their hands in recompense for what they committed. Undoubtedly, this is a harsh and unjust punishment. Not to mention, a person whose hand is amputated will remain a burden on society for life. What if this person reforms and becomes a virtuous, creative, and productive individual? Are there any Quranic texts that would restore his hand and heal his disability? Example 4 from chapter 4, verse 11. Allah commands you concerning your children, for the male, what is equal to the share of 2 females. Where is the justice in giving the female half of what the male receives in inheritance? Islamists justify this decision by saying that men are the ones who spend on women or the family. If so, then it would be fair for women to receive twice what men get if they are the ones who work and support their husbands and families. Example 5 from chapter 4, verse 24. And forbidden to you are married women except those your right hands possess. In this verse, we see the grave injustice that permits Muslim men to rape captive non-Muslim women, known as war captives or female slaves acquired from slave markets. This practice is still upheld by devout Muslims, such as Salafists, to this day. It is noteworthy that the trade in slaves and concubines was practiced in Muslim countries, especially in Saudi Arabia, Oman, Yemen, and Mauritania, until 1970. Regarding the biased or specific texts for certain individuals, absolute bias can be observed in these verses. Example 1, verse 37, chapter 33. But when Zaid had no longer any need for her, we married her to you. The question here is, does the God of the universe personally intervene to marry the Prophet Muhammad in the 7th heaven, as claimed, without witnesses and without a marriage contract? And where is the justice of this God when he did not intervene to help millions of Muslim men and women who did not find a spouse or life partner, leaving many of them frustrated and despairing? Example 2, verse 50, chapter 33. And a believing woman, if she offers herself to the Prophet, and if the Prophet wishes to marry her, it is a privilege for you only, not for the rest of the believers. Wouldn't it have been better for God to be impartial and replace the phrase "a privilege for you only" not for the believers with, and she may offer herself to whomever she wishes among the Muslims. Example 3. This combines the following two verses, from which we can deduce a special distinction and the portrayal of Muhammad as the best person to have come to this world. Verse 40, chapter 33, Muhammad is not the father of any of your men, but he is the messenger of Allah and the seal of the prophets. It would have been more appropriate for God to conclude his message with the prophet Ibrahim or Moses, without resorting to a competition of prophets to determine who is qualified to seal his message. Verse 56, chapter 33, indeed, Allah and his angels send blessings upon the prophet. O you who have believed, ask Allah to confer blessing upon him and ask Allah to grant him peace. In this verse, we see that the Quran, or rather God, obligates himself and his angels to venerate Muhammad, ignoring that Noah served him approximately 42 times more than Muhammad without fatigue or weariness, and that Noah is indeed the one who deserves this veneration and precedence among the prophets. Example 4, verse 41, chapter 8, and know that anything you obtain of war booty, then indeed, for Allah is 1/5 of it and for the messenger. One wonders, how does the God of the universe share 1/5 of the war booty with his messenger Muhammad and his companions while claiming to be free of need from the worlds and having dominion over the heavens and the earth? With this, I come to the end of this episode, and I am sure that with the evidence I have presented here, you can judge whether the Quranic texts align with human nature and whether there is explicit bias in many of its verses. For more details, you can refer to my books The Islam Delusion and Faith Exodus, Understanding Muslim Apostasy. Greetings to you all, and see you soon in the continuation of the series Is the Quran a Divine Book and How Can We Verify Its Divinity?
Talal Ar-Rawli